Came, saw, conquered. Michigan now has done that 3 straight times against Ohio State and is undefeated once again in the regular season. Let's go ahead and talk about the game. If you are new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. So if this is the type of content you enjoy, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below. Thank you to all of our brand new subscribers who have already joined the channel. We're on the way to 1,000, then 5,000, then 10,000, and 100,000. So make sure you tell your friends, your family, your sister, your brother, the drunk guy passed out in a Publix parking lot, your entire church congregation, really everybody about this channel. And as always, let's continue to talk college football. By the way, if you want to give me a follow on social media, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson. When you hit at Mr. Cole Thompson on YouTube, just go on over to Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it and hit at Mr. Cole Thompson at the same time. Michigan won. Michigan won 30-24 at home to close out the regular season against Ohio State, and they did it emphatically. They handled business the way that you saw fit. And this was a game where I think a lot of people probably had their eyes on Sharon Moore, and it came down to the quarterback. In my opinion, I even said during interviews throughout the week, this was going to be a game that was decided on J.J. McCarthy and Kyle McCord. Who steps up, who plays well under duress, and how do you respond when someone else strikes? This is supposed to be a boxing match. It's all about counter punches. You know, when you get in the ring, you're supposed to be able to deliver a blow, and you're supposed to be able to keep a blow. So when you get hit, it's not about how hard you get hit. It's about how hard you can take the hit and deliver one right back. And at the end, whoever is still standing is the champion. That was what Michigan was supposed to be. And they face a lot of outside noise going into this game. I think a lot of people thought that. And there was going to be people out there who were going to probably give Michigan a pass if they didn't win this game. Mainly because, well, no Jim Harbaugh, so Ryan Day gets the win, but Ryan Day really beats Sharon Moore. And these rosters are pretty evenly matched based off of quarterback and based off of what we have in the run game and what we have defensively. Jim Knowles has done a good job. Nay. So does Jesse Minter. Minter deserves a lot of credit for what he's done this year. And at the end, it's really going to come down to who's not on the sidelines. Nope, didn't matter. Because you want to know why it didn't matter? Because Michigan was built for this game. Michigan was built like a roster that goes into November and has the emphatic taste. And it's basically like a rabid dog foaming at the mouth and going, come mess around and find out. See what happens. They're well built. They're well equipped. They have exceptional depth. They have a roster riddled with future NFL talent that will find its home on Sundays. And they destroyed their stuff in front of the home crowd. That's what happened in this game. You watch J.J. McCarthy. He wasn't perfect, but he made the most. 148, one touchdown. You watch the run game. It wasn't elite by any standards, but when they had their opportunities, they took advantage of it. And then when Zach Zenter goes down, your first thought is probably, that's the moment. That's the moment where you're going to start to see pressure coming up front from the likes of Ohio State's defensive line. That's where you're going to see this team start to crumble. That's where you're going to start to see a change of motion, and this is where Ohio State takes control. Nope. Instead, Blake Corum runs it in for a touchdown. He throws up the 6-5 in honor of his teammate, and guess what? Lo and behold, that becomes a difference maker. And at the very end of the game, look at what happened once again. Michigan did what it does best. It makes teams force them into having to use their backhand. They knew that J.J. McCarthy was going to be limited as a passer. They knew that J.J. McCarthy was going to have to not really rely on his arm. So they said, okay, here's what we'll do. If you can stop us moving the football on the ground, then what will allow us to happen is we'll start throwing it. Nope. Slowly, clock churning. Okay, well, we're not going to go ahead and get this fourth down conversion. Let's kick a field goal, and instead of being up by 3, we're up by 6. Let's make Ohio State drive down the field. Defense, do your job. Go ahead and step up in the moment that's most. And they made Kyle McCord have some mistakes. Really, the big difference maker in this game, in my opinion, was inertia and momentum off of mistakes. You watch as McCord threw an interception early in the game, he capitalized. You watch McCord get able to pressure, try to get the ball into the hands of Marvin Harrison Jr. because everyone knew he was going to eat. The guy is a basically human highlight reel ready to make his name known on an NFL team, and he's now the all-time leader in 100 receiving yard games for the Buckeyes. He was always going to get his bundle. Like, you had to go ahead and force this team to go elsewhere at the same time. And they did. And McCord tried to force it, and it ended up being an interception. And that was the difference maker. Sharon Moore is your coach. That's what, let me just get this out of the way real fast. If anything happens where Jim Harbaugh decides to hang it up for good after winning a national title this year, if Jim Harbaugh wants to go back to the NFL, if Jim Harbaugh wants to just go ahead and get back in a broadcast booth or something, You don't do a hotbed or you don't do a throw your net out if you are Ward Manuel. You literally walk next door and say, hey, you know this office right here? That's yours now because he earned it. Michigan was able to find a way to win without Jim Harbaugh against Penn State, against Maryland, and Maryland was sloppy, but they still found a way to win. And they found a way to once again handle business in the one-season game. Michigan and Ohio State play a one-season game. Sometimes you could say it's two, depending on what version of Penn State you get. But this was one where you didn't trust the quarterback. The Nittany Lions really didn't trust their offensive coordinator and Mike Urich. It's why right after the game, he was fired. It was a one-season game. All came down to this moment. Who steps up? Who delivers the final punch? Who's able to capitalize? And great rushing attack, good offensive line play, exceptional depth found all across the board. Hey, we lose a key element to our offensive line. Plug and play, no drop-off. That's what national championship teams are built of. That's what teams, to when you say, oh, they can do it. Well, how can they do that? How can they actually win it this year? Like that, where you lose a player, where you face adversity, where you face backlash and outside noise with the Connor Stallion situation and the suspension of Harbaugh and the internal at the beginning of the year suspension of Harbaugh, where 6 games he's not around. He actually is on the sideline for more than half the games or at home. And you still don't see a drop-off. That's championship caliber rosters. Now the main question for Michigan is, how do you respond? And more specifically, not how do you respond, how do you finish the job? Because the last 2 years, we've seen the same thing happen, where they go back to the big house, they get a win over Ohio State, they find their way to the Big Ten championship, and then they lose to Georgia. And they lose pretty emphatically to Georgia. And then the next year, they go to Columbus and they beat up on Ohio State. And then they go ahead and they play in the Big Ten title. And they're undefeated once again. And then TCU at the very end seals the deal and they go play for a national championship. How do you end the season unlike years past? Because now you've gotten here. How do you make sure that you don't get complacent after this point? And I'm not saying that you're not going to have struggles with Iowa. Iowa's defense is damn good. Like, Iowa's an art form at this point. If you really want to know anything about Hawkeye football, it's basically like their formula is to drive you insane and it works for them. So why change it? Like, that's what it is. You're going to have some struggles in that Iowa game. But if you win and you win soundly, now it's about how do you respond when you have to take on maybe like a Washington or a Oregon or an Alabama or a Texas for that matter. And those teams are good. Those teams are good. Are they championship caliber like you? Maybe in some ways, but not all the way through. Not 100% 360 full circle, but they're good. How do you respond when it comes to that? But this is a game, in my opinion, where if you want to go ahead and say, yeah, the sign stealing was bad, and I'm going to get this out of the way real fast. What Michigan did was absolutely asinine. And if Michigan lost a football game this season, regardless of what they looked like when they played against an Indiana or a Minnesota or a Nebraska or anybody else, if they lost a football game this season, their strength of schedule was not enough, along with the sign stealing, to put them in the CFP if we were giving a shot for a non-conference champion. So they had to go undefeated. They did that. They did it pretty convincingly. They did it without their head coach, and they found a way to capitalize on positive moments. Michigan is built to win a national championship this year. And if you don't believe me, I can tell you this much. You don't have to. But I know the players in the locker room do. And they believe the guy that was the interim coach the last 4 games this year. And they also believe in the quarterback that they have. Maybe it's not the exact formula you wanted if you were Michigan this season, but it's one that worked. And it's one that's going to carry you potentially, more than likely, all the way to the college football playoff. Thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.